Most people don't fail because they lack talent, resources, or opportunity. They fail because every single day they sit down at the negotiation table with the weakest version of themselves, and they keep striking deals that destroy their future. They wake up knowing exactly what they should do, and then they pause. They hesitate. They bargain. I'll start tomorrow, just this once. I deserve a break. And in that moment, something dangerous happens. The stronger part of you steps back, and the weaker side takes control. Every internal negotiation weakens your identity because every time you pause to debate what you already know you should do, you teach yourself a dangerous lesson. You teach yourself that your word is flexible, that your standards are optional, that certainty can be postponed. At first, it seems harmless. You tell yourself you're just being realistic, just managing energy, just waiting for the right moment. But beneath that logic is a quiet erosion of trust in yourself. Confidence is not built by big wins alone. It is built by the thousands of small moments where you do what you said you would do, especially when it is inconvenient. When you negotiate with your weaker side, you break that bond of trust one decision at a time. The strongest people on earth are not those with the least fear or resistance. They are the ones who refuse to hold meetings with it. They don't wake up asking which version of themselves feels like showing up today. They already decided who they are. The moment you allow debate, you create delay. The moment you create delay, you create doubt. And doubt is the breeding ground where excuses multiply. Your weak side is not powerful, it is persistent. It survives because you keep listening, because you keep giving it airtime, because you treat its voice as if it deserves equal weight to your highest intentions. Every negotiation pulls you away from decisive action and into mental exhaustion. You waste energy arguing internally instead of directing that energy outward into progress. You feel tired not because the task is hard, but because you are fighting yourself. This is why people feel drained before they even begin. They have already lost momentum in their own mind. Action creates energy. Negotiation drains it. The longer you sit in discussion with your lower standards, the harder it becomes to move, and the easier it becomes to rationalize staying where you are. Identity is shaped in moments of choice, not moments of comfort. When you choose to act without negotiation, you send a clear signal to your nervous system about who is in control. Strength grows when decisions are fast and aligned. Weakness grows when every decision is revisited, revised, and re-argued. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your standards, and those standards are reinforced. Every time you either negotiate or decide, one path builds momentum. The other builds delay disguised as logic. If you want to change your life, you must change how you decide. Not someday, not when you feel ready. Now. Decide once, decide fully, and remove the option to debate, because the future version of you is created in the instant you stop asking for permission from the part of you that was designed to keep you small, safe, and stuck, and instead allow the strongest version of you to take control of the direction, the pace, the intensity, and the meaning of every action you take from this moment forward. Your weak side does not survive because it is stronger than you. It survives because you keep inviting it into the conversation. It shows up the moment discomfort appears, the moment effort is required, the moment growth demands sacrifice. And instead of recognizing it for what it is, a protective instinct wired for survival, not success, you treat it like a trusted advisor. You listen, you consider, you empathize. In doing so, you give it legitimacy. The truth is, the weak side only has power when it has a voice, and that voice only exists because you keep turning the volume up. Every excuse you entertain strengthens the identity you're trying to outgrow. Your weak side is patient. It does not demand that you quit forever, it only asks that you delay. It says not now, later, tomorrow, after things calm down. And that is how potential quietly dies. Not in a dramatic failure, but in a series of small compromises that feel reasonable in the moment. Each time you agree, you reinforce a pattern. Each time you rationalize, you hardwire behavior. Over time, the weak side no longer needs to argue. You already expect yourself to give in. The most dangerous thing about the weak side is that it sounds like you. It uses your voice, your memories, your past disappointments. It reminds you of times you tried and failed. It tells you to be careful, to manage expectations, to avoid unnecessary pain. And if you don't understand this mechanism, you mistake fear for wisdom. You mistake comfort for intelligence. You mistake avoidance for self-care. Meanwhile, the strongest part of you grows quieter. Not because it is gone, but because it has learned it will not be obeyed. powerful change happens when you stop asking your weak side for input. You don't need to destroy it, you need to disqualify it. You acknowledge its presence without granting it authority. You feel resistance without negotiating with it. You move forward without waiting for permission. This is how leaders are made internally, not by eliminating fear, but by refusing to let fear make decisions. When the voice of weakness speaks and you act anyway, something remarkable happens. The voice loses credibility. It learns that it is no longer in charge. Over time, the weak side doesn't disappear, but it stops running the show. It becomes background noise instead of the narrator of your life. Confidence returns, not because life gets easier, but because your response becomes stronger. You no longer wonder who will win inside you because the decision has already been made. The strongest version of you steps forward, not through force, but through certainty. And once certainty is established, momentum takes over, behavior aligns, and the future begins to shift in ways that once felt impossible, but now feel inevitable as you continue moving forward without hesitation, without compromise, and without ever again handing the microphone to the part of you that was never meant to lead. Power is not something you wait for, and it is not something that arrives when conditions become perfect. Power is created in the instant you choose certainty over comfort. Most people believe comfort is harmless, even deserved, but comfort is the most subtle thief of human potential. It doesn't attack, it seduces. It convinces you that staying where you are is reasonable, that pushing yourself can wait, that intensity is optional. Certainty, on the other hand, demands a decision. It requires you to lock in an identity and move before you feel ready. That is why certainty feels uncomfortable at first. It removes the safety net of excuses. When you choose comfort, you keep all options open, and that feels freeing in the moment. But open options dilute power. They keep you mentally scattered and emotionally hesitant. Certainty closes doors, and that can feel frightening, but closed doors create focus. Force creates results. The most powerful people are not those who feel confident all the time. They are the ones who decide first and let confidence catch up later. They do not ask how they will feel tomorrow. They decide who they are now and align their behavior accordingly. Certainty rewires how you experience pressure. When you are undecided, pressure feels heavy, overwhelming, and personal. When you are certain, pressure becomes direction. It tells you where to apply energy, where to sharpen skill, where to grow. Comfort avoids pressure. Certainty uses it. That is why growth feels intense. You are no longer hiding from discomfort. You are stepping into it with purpose. And the body responds to purpose differently than it responds to fear. Your posture changes, your breath changes, your voice changes. You show up differently because you have decided there is no alternative. Every breakthrough you admire in others came from a moment where they refused the easy option. They chose the hard path, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they valued progress more than temporary relief. Comfort feels good now and costs you later. Certainty feels hard now and pays you back over time. The trade-off is unavoidable. You are always paying a price. The question is whether you pay with discipline or with regret. The moment you commit with certainty, energy returns. The mind stops looping in endless scenarios and focuses on execution. You stop negotiating with yourself and start directing yourself. This is where personal power is born, not in hype, not in emotion, but in a clean, unwavering decision. When certainty becomes your default, comfort loses its grip. You act faster, you recover quicker, you trust yourself again. And once you experience the strength that comes from choosing certainty, you realize that comfort was never protecting you, it was containing you, and that the life you want requires you to step beyond what feels safe and into what feels aligned, decisive, and undeniably your. As you continue to move forward with clarity, intensity, and unshakable resolve, standards are the invisible force shaping every decision you make, whether you are aware of them or not. They are not what you say you want. They are what you tolerate. And feelings, no matter how intense, do not have the power to override standards unless you allow them to. Most people let their emotional state decide how they show up. When they feel strong, they act strong. When they feel tired, uncertain, or overwhelmed, they lower the bar. Over time, this creates an unstable identity that rises and falls with emotion instead of standing firm under pressure. High performers understand a fundamental truth. Feelings are temporary, But standards are permanent. You do not wait to feel motivated to act at a high level. You act at a high level because that is who you are. Standards decide behavior before emotion ever gets a vote. That is why two people can face the same pressure and respond completely differently. One collapses, the other sharpens. The difference is not talent, intelligence, or luck. The difference is what they have decided is acceptable for themselves. When standards are low, pressure exposes weakness. When standards are high, pressure reveals strength. The moment stress appears, your real standards show up, not the ones you talk about, but the ones you live by. If you quit when it gets hard, you have a standard for comfort. If you persist, you have a standard for excellence. And every time you meet pressure with action instead of retreat, you reinforce that standard. You tell yourself without words that you can be trusted in difficult moments. Feelings are powerful, but they are unreliable leaders. They shift with sleep, nutrition, stress, and environment. If you let them decide your actions, your life becomes reactive instead of intentional. Standards create stability. Thank you, they anchor behavior when emotion fluctuates. They allow you to perform even when confidence is low, even when energy is drained, even when fear is present. This is where real power is forged, not in moments of inspiration, but in moments of resistance. Raising your standards is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest. It is about deciding what you will no longer accept from yourself. No more half effort. No more excuses disguised as explanations. No more emotional loopholes. When standards rise, identity rises. You stop asking how you feel and start asking who you are committed to being. And once that decision is made, behavior becomes consistent. Not because it is easy, but because it is expected. The greatest shift happens when standards become automatic. When you no longer debate showing up, you simply do. When pressure hits, you don't panic, you execute. When emotions fluctuate, you stay grounded. This is how leaders are formed internally, not by controlling feelings, but by outgrowing their influence. Standards become the filter through which every decision passes, and under pressure, that filter determines whether you break or become stronger, whether you retreat or rise, and whether you remain a victim of circumstances or step into the version of yourself that performs with certainty, discipline, and strength, regardless of how it feels in the moment. As you continue to move forward without compromise or hesitation, momentum is not created by massive one-time actions. It is created by decisions that are made non-negotiable. When something becomes non-negotiable, it no longer competes with mood, convenience, or circumstance. It simply gets done. Most people wait for motivation to push them forward, but motivation is unreliable because it is emotional. Commitment, when made non-negotiable, is structural. It does not depend on how you feel. It depends on who you have decided to be. When you leave room for negotiation, you leave room for inconsistency. Inconsistency breaks momentum. One strong day followed by 3 weak ones creates frustration, not progress. But when you lock in commitments that are absolute, you eliminate daily decision fatigue. You no longer ask yourself whether you will act, only how you will execute. That clarity frees mental energy and directs it toward results. Momentum thrives in environments where decisions are already made. Non-negotiable commitments also reshape identity. Every time you follow through without debate, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Over time, those votes accumulate. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This identity shift is subtle but powerful. Once your self-image changes, behavior follows automatically. You don't need to push as hard because alignment does the work for you. The strongest version of you is built through consistency, not intensity. Intensity burns hot and fades. Consistency compounds. Non-negotiable commitments protect consistency. They create rhythm. They create trust. They tell your mind and body that certain actions are part of who you are, not optional tasks you perform when conditions are favorable. This is how momentum becomes self-sustaining. Action leads to progress. Progress leads to confidence. Confidence leads to more action. Resistance does not disappear when commitments become non-negotiable, but its influence shrinks. The voice that once argued learns it will not be heard. Excuses lose power because they no longer change outcomes. You may still feel tired, uncertain, or uncomfortable, but you move anyway. And each time you do, momentum grows, not dramatically, but steadily. Like a flywheel, slow at first, then unstoppable. Eventually, momentum becomes your new normal. You no longer rely on bursts of inspiration because your system is designed for follow-through. Life still throws challenges, But your response is conditioned. You act, adjust, and continue. This is the quiet strength behind extraordinary results. Not talent alone, not luck, but a series of decisions made final, repeated daily, and protected fiercely. When you commit to your highest self without escape clauses, momentum stops being something you chase and becomes something that carries you forward, shaping your habits, sharpening your character, and moving you toward outcomes that once felt distant, but now feel inevitable as you continue advancing with clarity, discipline, and unstoppable forward motion.